Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Well, we have a special guest, and surprise, surprise, everyone. Where today is March the 9th. March the 9th? Yeah, March the 9th, Wednesday. And today's guest, besides Mr. Bautista, is the County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. How are you doing, sir?
Real good. Always a pleasure, George.
Mr.
It's always a
Bautista.
pleasure to be on the and Mr. Bautista. Thank you.
I'm doing fine. Looking forward to talking to Mr. Samaniego like always. He's
Of course.
a splendid individual,
Yeah,
and and now that he's not running with any competition, I'm sure he's all kinds of relaxed.
well, first of all, Mr. Samaniego, thank you so much. I know you're an extremely busy man for taking the time to talk to us. Uh, me and you, we go back a few years, and that's why I think we have that relationship that, you do want to talk to your constituents, and we do appreciate
Absolutely.
that coming on board.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've been a great advocate, for any type of, inability or accessibility, and that's been really important to us. And I know we're going to be talking about what the county's doing and maybe what the county's not doing. It will be as honest and candid as possible, and I've been known to say what I think, and sometimes it's not as nice as I would like to see it. I think there's so many things we could do. So I'm open to any kind of discussion, George, on anything that you feel could be taken away from accessibility. It's very important.
And what it is also, Mr. Samaniego, and those who are watching and listening, is that this is a point I want to make regarding when it comes to our quote unquote elected politicians, that they'll say things and not follow through. And me and Mr. Bautista unfortunately have gone through that many times. And I can honestly say, Mr. Samaniego, you pledged that, to us, people with disabilities, that you're gonna make the environment better. And I think you well, of course, COVID came in, so that kind of took everything off track. We really can't. These past 2 years have been really different, and hopefully never happen again. But so with you, Mr. Samaniego, we're just going to talk about some general stuff regarding accessibility. But first of all, before we start the whole conversation, what do you see yourself, Mr. Samaniego, the three overall general important things that need to be addressed now in the county going forward?
Well, I've been waiting, sort of desperately waiting that I don't become Mr. Pandemic Man or something, where
Yeah.
all I do is fight the pandemic. And I come with a huge background in psychology, mental health. I've run large organizations. I've been an instructor at universities. And so I have a wide range of a background that I would love to be able to utilize. And unfortunately, I came in and we had the death of Peter Herrera, one of our deputies, in March, about a month into
Yes, that's true.
my term. And then we had the refugee crisis, and we had almost 180,000 refugees come through here when we were so generous as a community, but it was extremely overwhelming. Then we had August 3rd. As you know, I've pretty much a spearhead the Healing Garden and try to do something in to honor them. And then all of a sudden we get the pandemic. And the pandemic has been going on almost 2.5 years, and it's gone from, sort of, we were waiting, we're very happy. Everybody else had started the numbers in Texas, all over Texas, and we were, we could understand they were not coming into El Paso. It took a little bit, about almost 2 months before we started with travel spread. It's like that, and then went into community spread, and so we went from that to one of the highest, if not in the world. At one
Yeah.
point, our numbers were incredible. And so, I have a huge background in mental health, which is obviously going to be very important, and economic development. I worked for Cementos de Chihuahua for 16 years as the vice president of the U.S. division. And we probably acquired over 30, 40, companies, and we built several huge facilities, one for 450 million in Pueblo, Colorado, and then we bought a cement plant in Rapid City. And so I got to learn about, how do you go into a community and how do you create the synergism to be successful. And so those are the things. But one of my biggest platforms is obviously mental health.
Yes.
And mental health, because as we come out of the pandemic, there was a tremendous amount of delay in treatment, and people were isolated, and people are scared. You know, when people are scared and not know what this world, and you don't have a sense of control of your world, and you don't know what's going to happen or when the next virus is coming, it creates depression, indecision, and you see it in relationships now. You see it in violence, people driving pretty, aggressively on the road. Our crime has increased, homicides have increased, and suicides have become, greater than ever. And so mental health is going to be a tremendous, and it's one of the most difficult, Mr. Zavala, Mr. Batista, it's one of the most difficult because it's very subtle. It's sort of, you don't realize that people are going through difficult times. They display it in so many ways that it's just difficult. People are anxious and depressed, and it doesn't all come out. It sort of hides in some of our behaviors and relationships, and domestic violence has become a big issue because of people just being, when they were locked up, and in intensity and all that. So that's one of the biggest. The other one is to look at economic development. There's two elements that I think are very positive. One of them is the aerospace district. We have one of the biggest possibilities of being one of the best aerospace districts in the country, and we're using Fabens Airport. We got the most improved airport in Texas just last year, and we've been developing that airport. But a lot of research. The relationship is with UTEP. Dr. Shadari is heading that up. He's one of the most recognized aerospace, scientists in the country, and he's here at UTEP. Has been here for a lot of years and very much in love with El Paso. And so we have that, and we have the Tornillo, which is a drone park that is going to be very valuable. So I'm really keeping an eye on that because somebody needs to be nurturing it and making sure that it's going in the right direction. The other one is the Parks and Recreation, our master plan. Escada is going to be a very dynamic, incredible, central park. I mean, we've got ideas like a bridge over the water so that you could, take pictures, be up there. You've got the opportunity to have an amphitheater. We already redid where Western Playland used to be. We've redone that, and we've had some big concerts there with gravel and no bathrooms, and they still liked it. And so now the improvements to the lake, the connectivity, and then of course, tourism. Tourism is going to be very important. Heritage tourism is going to be very important. For example, tomorrow I'll be the guest speaker at Six Guns and Whiskey. Has a series at Netflix that's going to be shown, and it's a fundraiser. We're having it in San Elizario, and it's a beautiful place. It's Pistoleros. It's got like a dinner theater that most people don't know about, and so I think about 60% of the people that are going to go there have never been there.
Is that the one with Bernie Sargent?
Pardon?
Is that the one with Bernie Sargent and his wife, Melissa Sargent, the Six Guns?
No. This is they do reenactment. It actually, George, what it was an actual situation of a shooting, sort of like the Western kind of thing in the 1890s.
Okay.
And they're going to use that as the plot because we all it's Wyatt Earp and all these Jesse James and
Yep.
But this one is an actual sheriff that decided to take care of things for himself and control violence and didn't do it in the best possible way. But the series is going to be sort of an offshoot of that. What happened there? It's called, I think it's 4 Dead in 2 Seconds.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So very excited because I think we don't love our community as much as we think we do. I know we love being here and all that, but when 57% of the tours in San Elizario were done by individuals outside of El Paso, when I first heard that number, I said, wow, that's pretty good, 57. Then I thought, wait a minute, more people from outside are coming to San Elizario. So heritage tourism, we got everything we need, guys. We got the oldest missions in the country. We've got the church in San Elizario. We've got all of these things. And I don't know if you've noticed, but some incredible restaurants have been coming up, like Charlatan, which is an infusion of Japanese and Mexican food. That's
Okay.
unbelievable. Out of this world kind of taste. I mean, just your palate just sort of bursts because of this infusion. And so you've got Casa Ortiz, you've got a movie theater that was back in the 1890s that has been remodeled. So I've always said, when it comes to tourism, we have everything, all the ingredients on the table. We just need to bake the cake now. And
There you go.
the
Yeah.
best
Good
cake.
ingredients.
We
Yes, sir.
we don't have to create them or make them up. I mean, they exist. So that one, the other one that is really important to me is veterans. I've been working very hard. I'm 82nd Airborne. We just honored Bob Chisholm, who fought in World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam, and he was wounded in each one of them. So we have amazing veterans. He passed away last month, but we have people like the veterans. Isaac Camacho, for example, was an iconic. He was a prisoner of war and escaped during the Vietnam War for almost a year at a time. And it's just amazing what we have here. We've got flags over America. We've got great museums. So I've been working on this idea of making El Paso the veterans capital of the United States. And we don't have a moniker. We're the Sun City.
Hmm.
Doesn't say much, but if you say veterans capital of the U.S., now you've got veterans coming through I-10 that would be very interested and say, well, let me see what it looks like. The catch here is that we have to sort of entitle it ourselves, put our crown and say we're the veterans capital of the U.S., and then we have to defend it. Because, Hatch, Chile, the Chile capital of the world, they are that great, but nobody told them that. They just took it.
Yep.
Look at the San Antonio gateway to Mexico, 120 miles away, and
Yes, sir.
gateway to Mexico. They beat us to that one. So we have a great opportunity to do that, and of course, one of the things that I want to make sure that your audience understands is that I have made sure that one of our lanes, as a county, as a county judge, and I know that the commissioners who do a great job as well, is accessibility. And accessibility means that in a lot of different ways. Accessibility to our parks, accessibility to transportation, accessibility to healthcare, accessibility to broadband. I mean, it just allows so much when I say accessibility. And then, of course, accessibility to our parks, the people, at first when we talked about full accessibility park or playground, we were thinking of people maybe that were disabled or special needs, but one of the ones that were blocked from enjoying our parks was the grandfather who took his grandson to the park, but he had to stay, almost 100 or 200 yards away because he couldn't get into the park because of
Hmm.
amenable to going into the park. So that I really enjoyed that and working with, moms on board and they, you know, Adrian Moody, just unbelievable what she's done and trying to get us to do that and matching the numbers. And, we have the wild parks recreation, the wildlife and parks recreation. They've been so generous. And one of the reasons that it fits into our master plan is because the pandemic took a lot of things away from us, a lot of things away from us. And we, painful, we're now 3,340 people that have died, but it didn't take the outdoors away from us. And so one of the big focuses that we have is that people can go outdoors and do everything possible. We have another virus that we can say, hey, we didn't do that very well. As you remember, there in McAllican Canyon and on Trans Mountain Road, people were lining up because they wanted to come out of the house, but we weren't ready for them. The parks closed down. It was difficult on Alabama. People were getting on the street, and it was dangerous. And so now we know better that if we do go into that, a situation like that, we have to have parks and trails that allow people and people that have, disabilities that we need to make sure that they're not left out. And so it's a big One of the things I've said, we should never ever look at anything anymore in the county, and I encourage obviously a great relationship with the mayor, that there should never be anything that we don't think about everybody, that everybody should be able to enjoy it. One of my premises is that we have that no one in the county should be any different from anyone else because they happen to live somewhere else. So I don't want somebody that lives in Tornillo that has a different quality of life because he doesn't happen to live on the west side. We want our parks to be as, at one time you could be, it was obvious. This is a city park and this is a county park.
Yeah.
And the county parks were not, well received. I think we're now one of the best parks. And if you look at Escarate in the golf, there a lot of people are preferring to play at Escarate because of all the changes, features, and all the things that are there. And then it's sort of iconic to be, if you're from out of town and you're playing golf at Escarate, then you turn to your left and you see, wow, across that highway is Mexico. And then they could see the X and they could see, that they're there. So anyway, I mean, that's a general kind of a broad stroke of what I'm trying to accomplish at this time. But obviously, welcome your questions and any other thing that I can help to give a better sense of what I'm trying to accomplish, and also the commissioners and the actual all the commissioners and the county employees, amazing individuals that work for the county, and we're ready to do what's best.
And I think I want to touch on. Go ahead, Mr.
Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
there's two things I wanted to touch on real quick,
Sure.
and this is a question to you on a personal level. Going back to the very first thing you said about mental health, how was it for you? And I'm not sure if I asked you the first time, but we've had you several times, so I'm not sure if I asked you this question. But how was it for you personally to see the trailers when all those individuals had passed from COVID, and we had to unfortunately store those individuals in coolers and trailers? How did you go home from that? How did you?
Well, my training as a mental health clinician, and having worked in really difficult situations, and I also worked at the maquiladora, where there were times where we had to go out there and actually dig. You'd get to the cemetery and they'd pass you a shovel, and you start digging, and then it was really, I mean, like there'd be rock, right? So there was a wooden casket, and then you throw the first pile of dirt, and it was a rock, and you could hear it break. And so I had been in those situations, and it's not that you get cold or anything, but then you learn how to process it, and then you use that as a way to give you energy and passion to be able to address. So I knew that our community could not see that, and I was being challenged about you don't like businesses, you're closing them down, but I'm the one that had to deal with the trailers, and knowing that some of my friends, at one time I had a friend that was inside the trailer, and I got a call that he had passed. Did I know where he was? And it just so happened that I was there, and then you see the names, and so it was very difficult. But I knew that if I started to panic, or if I started to show any sense of that concern, or look stressed, and that it was going to impact. And I think the community at that time needed someone that you felt comfortable with, that would be able to address those situations. And if I've always said that children look at the eyes of their parent to see how that parent sees the world. And if that parent sees the world as scary and traumatic, and the child grows up like that. And so I remember that very vividly in my studies and in working with children, and not that the community were children, but they were like sort of similar. The parent has a view of the world, right? And the child has a limited view of the world. So that same concept is that I had a good view of what was going on that was very limiting to the communities. So they were looking at me to see how I was going to handle that. And so I remember very difficult situation, very passionate. I got very passionate. I mean, that I had to, when the governor or Paxson, the lieutenant or the attorney general would question my motives or question what I was doing, I just remembered always saying, if they came in and walked through the trailers, we had even as much as 900 in trailers, and then sometimes a trailer would break down, and that trailer we had to shift everyone, so our staff and everyone would have to shift the people in that trailer to the other trailers. And you can
Gosh.
imagine that when the times that you're there that's happening, or when I was there a couple of times where you would see 5 bodies come in and 4 bodies leave, and so I never want to forget that, George. That's a great question, because that's what keeps me wanting to fight that we don't have the next pandemic. My motto has been, or something I always say, is that you know we've got these 3,340 people have died. We need to keep them in the rear. We have to keep them in the rearview mirror, but we don't want to make that U-turn. We never want to go back there. And people say, well, we got the vaccine and all that, but people are not taking their booster. Their protection is declining, and people are very comfortable, and they should be, with the numbers are very low. There's very little hospitalization. But as our numbers, as our protection drops, and we get another virus, we could be pretty quickly into the same situation of people dying. And you have to remember that we're in a community that we have diabetes, one of the highest in Texas, if not in the country, the highest in obesity. We have the highest in heart issues. So we're a very vulnerable community. And so when we get hit with a virus, there were some places that lost a third with the same population. They lost 400 people when we lost 3,400 people. And so that sort of keeps they're embedded in my brain they know very few had the opportunity to really see what was going on. We're at home, we're streaming, we're Netflix kind of thing, and we're not really understanding the situation. So, born and raised, very passionate. I'm the youngest of 9. All of them except the first one born with a midwife. They're by Ari Thomason Hospital, which is now UMC. So, tremendous links with Juarez. I had family. In the political world, I had 2 great-grandfathers that were governors of Chihuahua. My dad didn't get to go to school, so you have these extreme situations of being very affluent and then being very poor and coming to the barrio. So I don't know. I felt like I was the right person at the right time, and I don't say that arrogant or bragging rights. I just felt that God had put me in a situation, but had given me the background from the mental health and my degrees and working with companies and working with businesses. So, I got accused that I didn't care about businesses because we shut them down for 14 days. But I shut down my businesses for almost 3 times more than was required. So anyway, I know it's a long response to your question.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And then my other question would be, so going kind of touching on to the playground and I applaud you, the county, for doing that, because what happens is, if someone with a disability or a mobility, let's go there. Someone with a mobility impediment, they go to a park. They don't care if it's county or a city, but we want to make that experience more translucent from the city to the county. And with this new all abilities playground at the Escarate, I think that invites more people to the park, because before they're gonna say, I'm not gonna go there. I can't go there. But now with this new park, hopefully it'll be, bring more people to the park, because I do applaud you for that, because we want to include those individuals no matter what, like you said earlier. And especially if we have a mobility impediment, how fair is it, folks? Let me real quick, just to put it in perspective. Let me ask you this. How would you feel if you was your grandson or your daughter or your son, and we'll make it to basics. You broke your leg at work. Now you have to use a walker, or you're in a wheelchair for temporary time. Not permanent, temporary. You go with your kid and you can't go with them. They're way out there playing, hey, Dad, hi, Mom. And you're like, wow, I can't go there because it's not accessible. How do you think that they feel? So I do applaud you for making that initiative to move forward with
Great
that.
analogy, George. And the other thing is, people need to realize that those all accessibility playgrounds cover all the five senses.
Hmm.
You know, we want people to be able to touch, be able to move, be able to smell. I mean, we try to do something where people can get the full exposure of our senses, and you know, it's very important. One of the things that I really love that I didn't quite understand until I got more involved in it, is that when a child sees another child that's struggling, and they're comfortable with it, they're playing with them, because when you're playing, you break up all those paradigms, right? You're just playing. You're not thinking, you know, the color or size or nothing. I mean, or if he's disabled, if he's in a wheelchair, you're trying to play. That's all you want to do. And then when they somehow, if they were able to reach and help, then you really break that barrier, because one of the things that happens, the way we interact with disability, is that we're not used to it. You know, we stay away from it. We don't want to be close to it. We don't want to know that someone has a disability, you know, so we try to get away from it. But when you interact kids at a very young age, and they're interacting and they're helping another child, and they see that child struggle, and they're able to climb, because you know, it's not just for people with disabilities. Obviously, it's going to be everyone. And so
Hmm.
a child is climbing up, and he sees himself climbing up and sliding down, and he sees a child struggling. Man, that he becomes a little bit more conscientious about that child and about disabilities. And to me, it's like everything, whether it's racism, whether it's hatred, it all comes from not having the awareness and the exposure, and that scares people. You know, if I, you know, if I hadn't had you know, my, you know, black students in my school, you know, I went to Jefferson, and if I didn't, my best friends, and they played football with me, I don't even understand what this thing racial is, or why I would treat someone different, because they're in my house. We played football. We loved them. We were friends. They baptized with us, and so you learn how to be in that situation with, and you're not awkward or uncomfortable at all. So one of the things that I saw was the children. I hadn't thought how much better it was going to be, not only for the child that has the, you know, the immobility, but the child that doesn't is going to gain a lot from that experience.
Yes, sir. Go ahead,
Mr.
Mr. Rico.
Samaniego,
Happy.
uh, my question is, I have two questions, but let me give you just this question.
Sure.
Um, when when you're working with the you know, like the parks and recreations and activities, uh, do you uh, do you go and find people who deal with disabilities, or for example, do you, you know, do you involve people with disabilities to participate in the planning or the developing of uh, the, you know, the programs that you're trying to produce?
Yeah, we ask for all kinds of, and sometimes it'll be like last time we had several people on wheelchairs that were there at the communication, and they get to express their excitement about, you know, being able to utilize the parks. And but I think we need to do a little bit better job of having a network. And I think this is where I think we're lacking, is to be able to already, for example, if I have a question that can help me about accessibility, I know I can reach out to George and say, George, you know, got this situation, or he reaches out to me and says, hey, he'll text me. So, but we need more of that network. We need
Yeah,
more of that network.
we need a I think you need like a committee comprised of people with all disabilities, because I'll tell you, as an educator, the biggest frustration I had was that the principals or administrators who knew nothing about it, special education, had the you know, that they were the ones with the authority to decide what was good for people with disabilities, and not knowing, you know, what they were doing, they still made those decisions. And I'd like to see, you know, uh, even the city, you know, to, if they're going to develop a park or you know, like the, some of us blind people play uh, hockey, blind hockey, and the facility is set up for blind, for sighted people. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And and they have never asked us blind people how, what would help you guys to improve your game, or what would help improving just the facility. That's all we want, and we've never had that. But let me just ask you one my other question that I had in mind, because when you were talking about about the activities and the planning of parks and all that, have you ever had any consultation with the New Mexico? I don't know, New Mexico. Cristo Rey is an excellent place to bring in tourists. You know, I,
Hmm.
I don't know. I've been up there and it's beautiful. You can see Mexico, you can see, you know, Texas, you can see, New Mexico, and it's almost like being up there, and and being able to see, and then plus it's a very religious situation for us. Has anybody ever tried to do something like that, to form a group of uh, to take tourists up there?
Yeah, we haven't. There was some concern with violence, and because
Yes.
we're actually in Mexico, there's nothing that was blocking it. But those are the things. They're great ideas, and one of the things that we've seen is that I know I talked to the bishop. He says, why aren't we enhancing the culture? For example, las peregrinas. Peregrinas are very popular, where people
Yeah.
walk from one place to the other, and I've been talking to him about doing that. I mean, I don't want to blame the pandemic because I think everybody blames the pandemic on everything.
Yeah.
One guy was
Yeah.
telling me, "Man, my IQ was a little higher, but the pandemic got it lower." So we're going to use that for everything. But
Yeah.
one of the things that we wanted to do was to have the peregrinas from Mexico. We used to. I know my family. We'd go to San Lorenzo and we'd get together and we'd walk from across the bridge and go to San Lorenzo, and go there because of a promise or that we had made a commitment on something. And but this one, I mean, we've had as many. I think they had what 45,000 people in El Día de la Virgen de Guadalupe that
Yeah.
went up to Cristo Rey. And so we have, what we've done is a lot of things sort of fragmented, and not by design, but by accident. And what I'm trying to accomplish is, how do we design? We just finished a binational convention in December. And one of the things that we learned is that we're not capitalizing on the synergism. For example, if people like to climb, then why not climb at Hueco Tanks and then go up there to Cristo Rey? But maybe there's things in Juarez to do that have to do with climbing. Or
Hmm.
Los Arenales, for example, they're like white sands, right? So if people like to go to white sands, how come they're not thinking, well, you go to white sands, well, I should also go to Los Arenales in Juarez. That would really. So we're learning how to create synergism between everything that we have. We have all of these ingredients that I said earlier, and we don't have to create them. Where can you possibly be that that you could go, in warm weather and you can enjoy the sun here, but then you could drive 2.5 hours, 3 hours and go skiing.
Yeah.
I mean, we
The-
have some exceptional things that we just haven't decided to market them properly. Then the other thing is that, what is sort of, we panic and we have a virus and they try to fix it themselves and we try to fix things ourselves. And what I've been saying, Mr. Bautista, is that I don't think we should ever do anything again that doesn't have the word binational in front of it. I don't care if
Yeah.
it's accessibility or addressing, these lack of accessibilities. We should address it as a binational community.
Yes.
We almost pretend like if people don't come across, and they come across with disabilities, they come across with wheelchairs, they're sight impaired, and you know what? And we're sort of dealing with everything. And the more we do of that, the more we erase the border. I mean,
Yeah.
we need it there because this is where one nation starts and the other one begins. That
yeah.
should be the
Exactly.
only, the only reason that we have
Yeah.
a border. But why are we falling into this idea of this fictitious border? It's a fictitious border when it comes to a virus, whether the virus doesn't stop right in the middle.
Yeah.
I can't cross. I'm sorry, I don't have my papers.
Yeah.
It was going to cross. And when you talk about disabilities, we would help each other so much And I encourage you, George, because you're amazing at what you're doing, to put that binational status. Even La Fiesta de las Flores, it's an amazing, we
Oh
had
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
that's a great
great.
place.
And they asked me if we should revive it again. I said, well, I'll help
Oh heck yeah,
binational.
yeah,
Binational Fiesta de las Flores. Otherwise, I'm not going to help. I said, I'm not going to
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to support anything where we reinforce this idea that we're separate from each other. Todos estamos tan juntos, we're symbiotically related and everything. We're trying to. So anyway, Cristo Rey would be one of them. I think we should take a little bit of chance and take some tours to the new places in Juarez. I'm creating something here in El Paso. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to do a tour, and we're trying to get, like the senator and the mayor from Juarez and the mayor from El Paso and the mayor of Yagashima from Las Cruces, and do a tour. And
yeah,
then have each one of us, because of our own connectivity and networking and media, that we would promote. Hey, we went to the San Elizario, we went to Charlatan, we went. So I'm trying to create that synergism between our two communities. But Cristo Rey, I mean, think of it this way. I mean, where else can you have something that you're standing there in this beautiful cross and everything, and you're on
yes,
two different counties?
Yep.
Think
it's
about
exactly.
how we have water in the desert, and it's been 15 years. We've had a white elephant there. No, I mean, when I brought Judge Nelson Wolf from, he couldn't believe it. He thought it had just happened. Like I took him to see it. And he goes, "When did this happen?" And I go, "No, no, we've had 15 years. We had a Western Playland here, and we let him go." And he goes, "Man, if this were in San Antonio, this would be like an amazing place." And I'm thinking, man, what an embarrassment for someone to say, if it were somewhere else, it would be amazing,
Yeah,
but it happens to be in El Paso.
Yep.
I'll
yeah,
never forget that. I'll never forget that. So we have water in the desert. We're 3 miles away from skiing. We've got Juarez next to us. They have their own Rio Doce and Los Pinos that is amazing. And we haven't put it together. So finally, we had this binational conference of about over 400 agencies, tourist agencies from all of Mexico. And we had the first one was in Chihuahua. It did very well. Last December was here in El Paso, and it went extremely well. And I'm sort of the face to it now. It's going to be in Torreon and Coahuila, and so this is a kind of bringing us all together. And I think the same thing is what you guys are trying to accomplish. I mean, just put that international, and you'll be having such an impact that.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Samaniego, in closing, because I know you're real busy. But in closing, kind of touch on what Mr. Bautista was saying regarding an AGA committee, advisory committee, because as me and you have spoken on this many years ago, is that for me, when I was chair of the committee, Mr. Julio Perez was the AGA coordinator here in El Paso. His main agenda was when any new park or any new facility or program was to be developed or implemented, he would ask us to reach out to like me, I was representing the mayor, reach out to our constituents and ask them, okay, what's your feedback? And for example, when we advocated for All Abilities Park, it was several of us. I mean, Mark Salazar, you name it, a bunch of individuals that advocated for All Abilities Park. And so one was built. The first one was built at Ponder Park. And what Mr. Samaniego was saying, it includes everybody. It's not exclusive, it's inclusive. And I think having an AGA advisory committee on the county level will help transcend our agenda of being more inclusive. And what I mean by that, Mr. Samaniego, is when we had that mechanism at the city level, it allows the city to be responsive to that issue. For example, just a quick example. Let's say a bus stop on Montana and Copia was not accessible. Come to the committee, submit it as an agenda item. The Parks and Recs, Sun Metro will come to us. Okay, you know what? We're going to address this. We're going to go ahead and put this on the next month's agenda. In other words, it will be a standing item until that item was rectified. And I think that would help with the county.
Absolutely.
Because you know, you have all these moving parts, but if you have it all centralized, it makes a better dialogue and it helps have more follow up.
You don't know, I can't tell you how embarrassing it is for me that you and I discussed this and that I checked in and they're telling me, oh, we're doing a study of all the counties and what is it that they're doing. And one of the things that we fail to do is to act quickly. I'd rather have an advisory group that we sort of don't know what we're doing and then we work towards, learning than to use this excuse that we're doing a study. I mean, it's doing a study always is saying I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And so
And let me say something real fast before I forget, because my
sure.
you said something too. What you said about the judge Wolf coming in, and you said that you're embarrassed when you said San Antonio. That's the same thing when there's like us people with disabilities. They will say, "Oh, in Milwaukee or in San Antonio, they have talking ticket readers, or in Dallas, they have this pathway." And I'm like, you know what? That needs to stop. Where they say El Paso has this, El Paso has that, and that's when you're talking about the ADA committee or advisory committee. When I had spoke to the ADA coordinator, Miss Manning, she had told me that. And I said, you know what? How about we do that, like you just said? How about have something here that people can point to say, how about El Paso?
Yeah, let's be the benchmark. Let's not look for benchmarks. We should be. I mean, we got people like yourselves. We got people that have been on this trying to make things happen. We don't need to go beyond that. You know exactly what needs to be addressed. You know what the situations are, and we need to favor our local talent and abilities and people like yourself. That instead of no, let's go do a study and let's find out what San Antonio's doing. I mean,
I'll give you an example, Mr. Samaniego. Um, we used to El Paso and New Mexico. We used to compete in beep ball, and I don't know if you're familiar with beep ball, but it's blind baseball, and it's one heck of a game when played, with blind people. And we don't have a space. We don't have a place there's no an area, a park area where we could say, you know what, we're gonna form a team and we're gonna go play beep ball. There's no place that we know of that we could use. Is that all we have is the school's football fields, or and those are usually not available to or open to us, people with disabilities. But I used to come to El Paso when I was playing for Albuquerque, and we used to come play baseball over here, and it's an amazing game. We used to even play against the uh, the city, like equivalent to the baseball team that they have here, and we used to play against them in their stadiums, and the people loved it. They love to see blind people beating sighted people who are blindfolded. But
wow.
something like that we don't have, and I've always said, well, there's nobody
Escalante
there.
would be perfect for that because we have 420 acres. We've
There
had
you
like
go.
the Bravos came by and Mauricio Ibarra, Consul Ibarra came by and they said, hey, we need to start promoting soccer, but also for women and young ladies that they could play. We took them to Escalante. We're looking at a facility there, a place that we could use. They're going to promote and pay a lot of it by bringing in the turf and things like that. I don't know why I hadn't heard about that, Mr. Bautista, but I would love to sort of help you, uh, connect you with Veronica, and she loves to take these things because El Paso has to. I mean, Escalante has to be a park that is unique in so many ways. To imagine we have a Mexican team that's going to be giving sort of classes and training to develop Hispanics that in soccer and also women. I mean, where does that happen? You've got another country trying to help us develop it. Why? Because it's a talent that's in Mexico, but U.S. is barely developing soccer here in the United States. I mean, they're amazingly great, but when you look at the women part of it, it's not. And so these are the kinds of things that lends itself to a huge park. I mean, we have our master plan. We're pretty surprised that we have more land than we have ideas. I mean, you look at 420 acres and all that to the west side I'm sorry, the east side of the park, where the basketball courts are. I mean, it's pretty much unused in that area. The backside to the south. I mean, we're going to have a really nice, marquee that's going to be telling what's going on. There's a huge marquee on the border highway, and uh, but we have the space and the land, and so we just need to entertain everyone. And I think that's something that Veronica would love to hear about. We've gotten calls for things like pickleball, and because
Yeah, pickleball. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really
every
neat.
generation is getting excited about that, and so we're willing to look at anything, and we're very fortunate. Like I said, the land of availability, and it could be multi. You could have a soccer field and have what you're looking for, Mr. Bautista, and have it in the same place if required. Just make sure we do whatever it takes. So
Yeah.
I
Right.
think Escárate is going to lend itself for some great things, and I would love for you to add that as part of the of our presentation. We haven't closed down the community feedback. And let me say, one of the things that I've seen that people are no longer tolerating is that you bring something to them that hasn't been vetted by the community. Before they would say, "Aquí está, mira, te va a gustar, hombre." Don't,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
gonna like it. Hombre. Don't, I mean, we can't do that anymore because our community is saying, "No, I don't care how good it is. If you didn't bring it to us, it ain't gonna happen." And one of the perfect examples of that, I was able to acquire through District Attorney Jaime Esparza a piece of land that used to be. It's hard. I don't like to mention the name, but it was a naked harem, and it was confiscated and it was taken away, and the city and the county had it. And then I got involved, and they gave it to me as a mental health project, and we worked on it, and we were getting a little ahead of ourselves. We realized, hey, we got to get our community involved here. So we got our community involved, and we had a Saturday where they filled out all these surveys. We asked questions, we interviewed people. We spent the whole day. It started to be a little cold, but it was a great day. We had the jumping balloons, the climbing thing that kids love. We had music. And people talked about what they wanted to see. The community told us something, a strong message. Hey, we're tired that everything you bring in things for drug abuse and people rehabilitation, and that's fine, but man, don't abuse us on that. We got everything in Alameda, and so what about a community type center? How come? So we did a rendition that's going to come out later, but that was a perfect example of you've got to work with your community and make sure that you're taking everyone's consideration,
Yes, sir.
everyone. And that's what
Yes.
we'd love to do. In your case, I love what you're saying. We should have a group of people already saying, you're going to do this. How is that going to impact any type of disability? And have people available to give us that feedback. And so,
Well,
I mean,
because I know you have to go, Mr. Samaniego. In closing, what would you like your constituents to know regarding your plans or what the next step is? Because I know the elections are coming up, but that's not really a discussion thing here. But what do you plan to do? Or let me say this: what do you want to tell your constituents?
well, first of all, I want to thank them because there was a time when I needed their help. I couldn't, they took away curfews away from me, mandates away from me. I went to the war. They took my rifle away. Don't
Yes, sir.
go to war here. Give me a rifle. And so I had to plead to the community to help me. Hey, put the mask on. Hey, social distancing, stay at home. And all of a sudden, we went from the worst to the best. We reached herd immunity before anybody did. I think we were second in the United States and first in Texas to reach herd immunity at 70%. So what I want to ask is that I'm hoping that somehow I build the credibility to be able to say, okay, the pandemic's over, but there's other things we have to do. For example, this idea of loving Juarez and taking care of them, I need them to support that. At first, when we did, I spearheaded the 33,000 vaccines that took place on Tornillo. There was a little bit of resistance. I almost had to say, hey, the only reason people supported it really was because when I said, you know what, we're doing this because eventually these people are going to come into your community. And that got them all motivated, which is okay. But there was a humanitarian component. We bring billions of dollars of business comes through Juarez, through El Paso, and vice versa. And then we didn't want to be humanitarian. And so we're now looking at 150,000 children where they don't have the vaccine between the ages of 5 and 11. And we do. And so we're going to help them. And I want the community to feel good about that, feel good that I'm trying to do the right thing. And so that to me, I mean, I'm very thankful, but I hope I continue to be a trusting voice. We got people like Senator Blanco and other people that we're really trying to get El Paso to be on the map, but we need to get the community sort of focused all together. When we went to Detroit, you could get on any, and we went to Detroit and Pittsburgh to see what was going on. Pittsburgh was the lid to hell. That was their moniker. I mean, that's where they started from, and now they're a high technology. They're they've turned it around. But if you get on an Uber, if you talk to anybody on the street, they sell Pittsburgh and Detroit to you. They'd love it. Come to our town. We'd love to be, for you to be here. That's what we need in El Paso. First of all, we have to enjoy what we have, and none of this no hay nada que hacer, nada que hacer. There is so many things to do, and then sell that to your family that come in to visit us, and let that family be ambassadors for us, and we're going to take off to the next level. But we want to regulate it properly. We don't want it to get out of hand where congestion and everything is a big issue. So we're very conscientious, that we do it, urban development in the right way. But I can tell you, anybody here in El Paso right now, you're in the best place in the country to be in. We're the strongest economy of all of Texas during the pandemic. That was with the borders closed. So you can imagine, now the borders are open. We had the highest sales tax revenue in the history of the county, and we continue to do that. We're in a great place, and we continue. And you know what's interesting? I'm the guy who talks to the companies that come in, and I'm the guy trying to close the deal like Amazon or those, and we come in. You know what they love? Our people. They always mention, oh my God, I fell in love with the people. The people treated me amazing. Let's not stop doing that. Let's teach our children, because we don't know how that happened. We don't know how to bottle that. I don't know why people love us so much, about how they love the people. They come here, they don't want to leave. But I don't know if we're teaching our children to be the same, because that's something that's going to be very valuable to El Paso. The people are always going to be what sells this community. It's the mountains, it's the weather, it's the big 4-star hotels and all of that. But I can tell you the number one thing people tell us is that they love people, their dedication to work, their work ethic, the way they focus on their work, how task-oriented they are, and how much they want to learn. If we're able to keep that kind of spirit in our community, we're untouchable. And as you know, in marketing, it's what you differentiate.
Mm-hmm.
How do we differentiate ourselves? By the people. But we got to get our other younger people to be the same way, unentitled, hard workers, want to do the best, and love their community.
Yes,
I don't know how that happened, but it happened. I don't know
it's culture. It's part of our culture too.
Our culture, our families, but we got to keep that going. Otherwise, we're going to lose out on a huge advantage.
Oh yeah. And Mr. Bautista, before Mr. Samaniego goes, do you have anything fast?
I just want to again, as always, I want to thank Mr. Samaniego. He's a great person to listen to. He's got really great ideas, and it's no wonder that he has no opponent, because he's got that heart that one, and I love his attitude and his ideas, and I just thank him for coming to our show.
Well, thank you. It's a very, very kind words and very helpful. Sometimes you sort of lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing, but the people have been so nice and encouraged me to continue. And you guys do some great work, and it's very valuable, because we're never going to be a great community if we don't take care of everybody that lives in this community.
But you know what's there's a funny thing about this, Mr. Samaniego and Mr. Bautista, really. It's just what you're seeing now, folks. It's not him being a politician, like everybody. Oh, they change when they're on. He was when we initially met. God, it's been a while. When I was at the workforce, Mr. Samaniego was one of the managers. Well, I mean, he's like one of the higher ups, folks. I mean, he's one of the, he could walk by and not say hi to you. You want to, okay, but he wasn't like that. And one day, I'm at my desk, and then she sat down, started talking to me like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And he listened. Because even though I'm blind, I could tell when somebody's not listening. I could tell, and they're like, I could tell myself, oh, they're not listening. But Mr. Samaniego, to then to now, you've been the same. You haven't changed. I haven't seen it. So I appreciate you staying true to who you are.
When they say, what do you want people to say at your eulogy? And that's one I would love that people say that I'm the same person, that I didn't, because I'm a county judge or I worked 15 years at Cementos at Chihuahua, and, you get paid very well, and you can really get into thinking that you're somebody, and somebody at my retirement said he came in the same and left the same. To me, that was the biggest compliment because, everything that I do, it's God, and I'm a vehicle of God, of trying to use my hands, my speech, my whatever I could do. So I never one time ever say, oh my God, I am, or I know I'm an instrument, and I don't really feel that I'm anybody any different. Soy del barrio, era vago, andaba en pandillas, and I don't know. I was thinking today that if the one of my teachers looked down and said, county judge, man, I thought he was going to be in La Tuna, not as a And so I'm very fortunate to come from such a place and then be in this position. But every day I'm very blessed that, keep your feet on the ground and reach for the stars, as they say.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's a good way to finish this off. And say, Mr. Samaniego, I do appreciate that. I know you're an extremely busy person to come on board and talk to. So, what happens a lot of times, folks, is people with disability are kind of like, secondhand or, they don't want to bother. But thank you for doing that.
No, thank you guys. You do a wonderful job, and I invite the community. Everywhere they want to come visit Commissioner's Court, or they want to come visit my office and look at the criminal justice. I love people to learn. On Commissioner's Court, I mean, the resolutions are like, that make my day, because we're recognizing people and stay tuned. I mean, it's amazing the people we recognize. We recognize heroes, we recognize organizations. This is right now we're recognizing Women's Month, and also if you can make it to Pistoleros at the San Elizario on the with the Six Guns and Whiskey event fundraiser. Is going to be fun.
That's tomorrow?
It is tomorrow. Tasting events and everything else. We're going to have some personalities there that we'll be able to highlight. So a great opportunity for people to know about Saneli. Saneli is the seat of the county.
Yes, sir.
The first county judge was there, and I'm very proud to be one of that. Tail end of that, but
yes, sir. Yeah, back in the 1840s, 18th. Yeah. So, well, Mr. Samaniego, thank you, sir, so much.
Thank you.
I salute you, Mr. Bautista. Thank you, sir, for coming on board, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And
thank everybody. You have keep watching this show, because they always manage to do something that's going to be important for how you live. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you, sir. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Samaniego. Bye-bye.
Adios.